Let's start with you are one of the earliest investors in Bitcoin from the Silicon Valley investment community. What's changed since you first started investing and believing in Bitcoin?
Well, it's become more and more exciting. It just keeps getting more and more exciting as more and more people come up with new ways of transforming the economic systems of the world. I went through the internet boom and bust and boom again, and I have never seen anything as exciting as this. This has the potential where the internet transformed communications and information and gaming and entertainment media. Bitcoin and all the associated technologies with Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, they have the potential to transform all of finance, all of commerce, all of banking, insurance, healthcare, real estate, and government itself, I think, is going to be completely transformed. Bitcoin's decentralized base has opened people's minds and opened the doors to just one big world where geographic borders are less relevant.
So
it's really exciting. Never been so excited about any new technology in my life.
When you first started investing in the internet, there was a very specific trade-off between the closed network systems like intranets and the group of volunteers that were building the internet. Obviously, the internet, the open system won. It's a timely conversation given the recent announcement of things like Libre and other, what I think are semi-decentralized or attempting to be somewhat decentralized, but still not Bitcoin. How do you think about the differences between the Bitcoins of the world and then the Libras and kind of these other second followers?
Well, I think it's just great that Facebook is jumping in and recognizing the importance of currency. And I think Libre has a lot going for it. It has a big distribution channel in Facebook. It has it's a cryptocurrency, so it can be spread globally. But it has two things going against it. It is it's still tied to political forces. It's still tied to fiat currencies, and I think I think it's short-term fine. It's a nice bridge to Bitcoin, but long-term, I think people will go for something that is not tied to a central government force. And then the other thing that it has going against it is that centralized Facebook will be controlled, and the world will be determined by the people who work at Facebook. It won't be open to the world, and Bitcoin is open to the world. And I think there is a significant difference there. And I think long term, I think that Facebook might be better off just adopting new programs and platforms around Bitcoin. But for now, I kind of like that they're jumping into the fray. It's a little like when Apple was among the first PCs out there, and then IBM came into the PC world, and Apple said, "Welcome to IBM, welcome to the world." It's kind of the same way with Libre. It's sort of welcome to this new world. It's going to be very different. Various governments are struggling with how to handle it, because they realize now they've got to be in competition with each other for us, as opposed to just having all the people kind of enslaved by them. And so it's a whole new world. It's very exciting. And when there's this much change that's going on, this much tumultuous activity, it's a perfect time for entrepreneurs like you in your audience, because we thrive on change. We look for things like that. This is where we can make that big impact. It's like heroes rise to the top when there's a lot of big waves and a lot of tumultuous.
So you mentioned government officials and the fiat currencies being tied to central banks. You've gone around the world and talked to a lot of these government officials. One, what's their reaction to Bitcoin and kind of the interest level? And then two is I heard that you attempted to make a bet. I think it's with the Argentinian president. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so
you didn't know I was going to ask you that.
I had a great meeting with the Argentinian president, Macri, and he said, he just came in the meetings, kind of looked around, who are you guys, what's this about? And I said, well, I met with you 2 years ago, and I told you about Bitcoin. And he goes, And then I said, and during that time, Bitcoin's gone from 10,000 down to 4,000. And he said, And I said, and during that same amount of time, the Argentinian peso has gone from 7.5 cents to 2.5 cents. And he kind of goes, oh, yeah, where's this going? And I said, okay, so I'll make you a bet that if the Argentinian peso does better than Bitcoin over the next year, which doesn't look promising now, I said that I would double my investment in Argentina. He goes, okay, and he perfect. And I said, okay, but if Bitcoin does better than the Argentinian peso, you make Bitcoin a national currency. He looked at me like, oh, God, I'm not going to do that. And he laughed a little like just the way you did. And he said, and then I said, just the way Japan did. And all of a sudden he goes, what? And he realized that another country had done that. And he said, let's get on that. And he talked to his minister and said, set up a call with the minister of the economy of Japan, and let's see if we can get this done. I have not heard anything since, and the government moved pretty slowly, so it probably won't happen. But I hope he does it before his next election, which is in November, because he's a great guy. I hope he wins. But right now, his popularity is low. And I think I told him that you needed two things. One, make Bitcoin your national currency. And the other is to spend all your infrastructure money to bring in 5G. Because I told him that the internet there was horrible. I was in a really nice hotel. The horrible internet. It felt like dial-up. And then I went to a restaurant and there was no internet there, and I thought, this is really bad. You really want all these entrepreneurs to come to your country. You've got to up your game. And I think if he stood up and he said, we have made Bitcoin a national currency, and now we have 5G throughout Buenos Aires, that would attract a lot of great entrepreneurs all over the world. So I hope he does. And it is interesting because the other countries I've gone to have two different approaches to Bitcoin. One is really feeling threatened by it because they know that they control their population by controlling the currency. And they're feeling like, I've got to still be in control or I lose my power. But all the greatest leaders in the world are the ones who push their power away. George Washington, Gorbachev, Deng Xiaoping, they all push the power away. The best leaders are the ones who recognize when it's time for the people to run. And this is one of those times. And some countries are like China feels very threatened by Bitcoin. They made it illegal, and Japan said, we're going to make it a national currency. And then, Binance was trading Bitcoin and many other currencies. And then China said, what you're doing is illegal. And so they had to move. So they moved to Singapore, and Singapore started getting heavy-handed in their regulations. So then they went to Malta. And I met with the Maltese president, and he is so open. And he's thinking, bring it on, baby. We want all the stuff here. got big conference in Malta. He does all sorts of things. It's really easy for people to do business in Bitcoin. I really think that we're in the beginning. It's just the beginning of one of the biggest industry shifts in the world, because there's so many amazing opportunities with this technology, and there are and the countries that regulate it do it at their own risk. I've noticed that the U.S. SEC I've met with people, and they want to make sure that they're still providing all the safeties and securities that they had before, but they do recognize that those laws are 80 years old, and a lot has happened in the meantime. And now they want to make sure that they let technology and innovation spread in the country, even though they're still trying to stick with all the laws that are 80 years old. So I think this is going to be, this is a telling time. This is going to be one of those times where people think, oh, the decision the government makes this way won't make that big an impact. I think it will make an enormous impact, and it will be like a 40-year impact. It'll be the equivalent of the internet, when the U.S. Let the internet roll and let all these great things happen with the internet without regulating it. And by doing that, they benefited hugely. The internet, I mean, God, imagine what it's been done in the U.S. Well, the countries that are the ones who let the Bitcoin and the blockchain and smart contracts and all this roll are the ones that are going to be huge beneficiaries from 10, 20 years from now.
Tim, I'm glad that we're sending you to other countries and you're telling them their internet sucks and Bitcoin's better than their currency.
Yeah, I've always been kind of a diplomat.
I can tell. So I think most people that are in the room are drawn to Bitcoin as better money, a better store of value. And if this just became another financial asset, just like a kind of single one, but it didn't have the world-changing impact that you're describing, it probably wouldn't be nearly as interesting. It's kind of like people are here for the home run, if you will. That's not a foregone conclusion, though, and there's a lot of challenges between where we are today and Bitcoin becoming the global reserve currency. What do you see as the biggest challenges, and how do you think we get over those?
Well, I think the biggest challenges have been brought up early. That was the amount of energy that it takes to do the mining and how slow the blockchain is. And both of those have been solved by technology. First of all, it takes less energy now to do mining. And the miners have found places that are much cheaper to mine. They do it at Niagara Falls instead, in the middle of New York City. And they do it in very structured, organized ways, and that's great. So the mining is not taking as much energy or as many resources as anybody thought it would. And then the speed of the blockchain is getting solved by these plasma technologies like OpenNode that jump off the chain, allow a bunch of these trades to happen, and then cycle back onto the chain. And I think that does solve a lot of all of our problems, and we can now easily transact business in Bitcoin without, in fact, the OpenNode's promise is for it to be even faster than the Visa network. So I think that that problem is also solved. And I think that other entrepreneurs are solving other problems, which are all sort of tied to, well, we've built these financial systems over the last 80 years, and we can, and it'll probably take 2 or 3 more years to apply all of those interesting financial systems to Bitcoin. And over that 2 or 3 year period, we'll realize, we won't even realize, but we will be using Bitcoin in so many other ways that we never thought we would before. I think that my goal is to be able to, without hindrance from the IRS or FASB, to raise money in Bitcoin, invest it all in Bitcoin into a bunch of different companies, and have those companies then pay their suppliers and employees in Bitcoin. And what that does is the blockchain keeps the perfect record of all of those transactions. And so I don't need an accountant, the companies don't need an accountant, and neither do the employees. All their taxes are paid, everything's done clearly without any hindrance. And I could have a smart contract with all of my limited partners that when there was a liquidity event, they would immediately get paid right into their wallets. It's probably about 2 or 3 years away, as long as the regulators are open to letting that happen. In fact, I think the regulators are actually better off because the blockchain is so open and transparent. They're so easy. And then I think of like a couple other examples. Lucasfilm has to pay. You see a Star Wars movie, they got to pay all 15,000 of those people that are credited at the end of the movie. And right now they send them checks in the mail for anywhere from 3 cents to $4.22, and those checks cost Lucasfilm $7 to send. And if they just use Bitcoin and a Bitcoin wallet, the wallets would all be immediately populated. People would start trusting the studios again, because the people who work for them would start trusting them, because they would know that every time somebody bought a movie smart contract and something into their little Bitcoin wallet. So I think that's another amazing application. So all micro fantastic this way. And then I think insurance is going to go through a real revolution. I think we're going to see an amazing new change. Now when you do insurance, you pay your premium, you keep paying your premiums, and then you have a claim. And then you have to fight the insurance company. And then eventually you get paid something, maybe, or you just pay your lawyer. And I think that down the road, a smart contract is ideal for an insurance company, because when an event happens, you don't even have to file a claim. The claim already happened. And you'll get your money right into your Bitcoin wallet. So I think we've got a lot of work to do. And I think there are a lot of great entrepreneurs and engineers out there doing some extraordinary work around Bitcoin. And I think it's so valuable, because it's taking humanity to a higher plane. I think we're going to leave this tribalism that we've always been a part of, tied to geographic borders, and we're going to be much more open, and the world is going to be global, and we're all going to be a part of this major change happening to our world. And it's up to all of you and all of me to get this thing done. Because we know it's going to be a better world out there once we've done all the work.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I think that we are running out of time, and there's supposed to be somebody to come up here and tell me a question to ask. But while they're not coming up, if Bitcoin becomes a global reserve currency and there's a separation between the state and money, what's the geopolitical impact of that?
Well, I think you're going to see the dissolving of borders, and I think that our grandchildren will look back and say, what were all those booths? And we'll say, oh, that was customs, and that was something to keep people in and keep people out of countries. And they're going to say, that's so stupid. Because it's all one world, it's all our world, let's make the most of it. And I think that the best of the countries are going to be the ones who are the most open and the least controlling. And the ones that are very controlling are going to have trouble. I think their economies are going to flatten out, because I think this is the way the world's going, and you either get on board and you get behind it and you get excited about it and you see how you can have your country benefit from it, or you resist it and your country, the people in your country, either leave or they live in the dark ages. So this is really one of those really critical times, and I think the reason we're seeing all of these, the roar of, I call it the roar of the dying lion. You're seeing countries like China, trying to control everything and trying to limit their people and keep their borders secure and all that. I think those countries are the roar of the dying lion. They see that there is a new world coming, and it's wide open, and it's completely borderless, and they are threatened by it, and they are trying to protect their old, what they call power. They're trying to protect their power. But what they don't understand is that the best leaders of the world that the world has ever known are the ones that push power away. And so I hope that they all wake up. I hope that all the leaders wake up and say, hey, this is a better way for the world economy to operate. If you're stuck in Sudan and you've got a bunch of Sudanese money, and then the military shoves you out and you end up in Greece, if you have Sudanese money, you got to start all over. If you have Bitcoin, you can pull down your Bitcoin, buy a house, start your life, and not miss a beat. I think countries have to recognize that, and I hope they do.
Long Bitcoin, short the bankers.
Are going to just thrive. They're going to be awesome.
All right, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Draper.